Anybody good excuse makers in the room tonight, in the house tonight? Yep. Man, high school girls, I just want you to know you brought it tonight. Y'all are dialed in. And you're a bunch of excuse makers apparently as you raise your hand. Hey, I really think a lot of us are great in making excuses. Like, I didn't have time to do the homework, right? Yeah, every day. Hey, Mom, I didn't feel good. I didn't clean my room, you know? Oh, that's due today? Oh, meetup starts at 9? I thought it started at like 9 p.m. Mountain Time. I'm okay. We all got excuses, right? We're going to be looking at a story Jesus told where it had to do with excuses. And before we get into that, I want to share with you a very painful, and I'm smiling when I'm saying this, extremely painful story, okay? It's a family story, and it involves my wife's grandpa. And I learned about this story when I started dating Christy, and I met Papaw McGee for the first time, and he actually told me the story. So Papaw lived in Fayetteville, in the northwest part of the state, and he was a USDA meat inspector, okay? And that means he went around to different places and made sure that the butcher shops, grocery stores, that the meat was cut a certain way and it met certain criteria, okay? So he had a badge and everything, so he could write a fine or whatever and everything. Well, one day, according to Papaw, he and a guy were hanging out, and this gentleman walks up to Papaw, introduces himself. Papaw introduces himself, and he says, "Guys, I have a business, but I'm actually expanding that business, and I need some investors. I need local people in Northwest Arkansas to invest in this business." Now, I'm thinking that, what we're doing here with this one store, we can do it all over the region, maybe even America. And I just need some Northwest Arkansas guys to step up and join and put some money in. And basically, we're about to go public, and I need you to buy some shares, and I'll make a deal with you. I'll sell them at 25 cents a share instead of $1 a share. Y'all with me on this? That guy that talked to, and Papaw was like, kind of laughed it off and said, "Okay, great," shook his hand, got a business card, and he said, "I can't invest in this guy's deal because I'm a meat inspector, and this guy's going to have a store and maybe selling, groceries and stuff, and there's no way, I can't legally do it." And he just blew it off. Until a few years later, when he realized who he was really talking to, and it's this guy right here, Sam Walton. Now, that's a painful story. I want to show you how painful it is. Papaw made an excuse. He didn't invest. And I'm cringing up here. So hit the first one here. Okay. So in 1970, when Walmart went public, and you could buy shares, they were $16.50 a share. Since then, the stock has split 11 times. And every time the stock splits, it literally doubles. And so one share, if you just bought one share in 1970, at $16.50, you would now have 2,048 shares today. From one, just buy one. Okay? You ready for this? Hit the next one. Okay, whoa, stop right here. If for some reason you had enough money in 1970, $5,000, which back then could buy you a car, okay? But let's just say you had enough money and you were gonna invest it in Walmart stock in 1970. If you'd invested $5,000, this is what you would have today. $74 million. Now hang on a minute. I want you to listen. I want you to lean into this. Papaw could have bought them at 25 cents a share, not $16.50. If he'd have made that deal that day, I would not be here right now, okay? I would be on a beach in Maui praising Jesus and singing Oceans to the sea turtles, okay? Seriously though, mind-blowing. And here's what the sad part is. Papa was thinking after the offer was made, and this was years later, why in the world did I never think, I can't be a stockholder, but my wife can. Could have put it in his wife's name. Didn't do it. Why? He made an excuse. Maybe a good excuse. You know, when we feel like God's telling us something, and we make excuses to God, we don't look at it like this. We look at it like it's just God. He loves everybody. God will understand. God's okay if I don't do what He tells me to do. Or yeah, God's got these things in His Word. You know, maybe it's a suggestion in your mind. And God will understand. Well, I'm going to tell you, Jesus tells a parable, which is a story with a spiritual story, an earthly story with a spiritual meaning. I'll get it out here in a minute. He tells a parable, and you see right away that God doesn't like your excuses, and mine either. He loves you. He don't like your excuses. He don't like my excuses. Because constantly, people kept making excuses to Jesus, the way we always seem to make excuses to God. And so, look at what Jesus says in Luke 14, verses 16 through 18. Jesus is telling a story to a group of religious people. We'll get to the setting here at the very end. I'm doing it on purpose that way for a reason. Jesus told these people a man was giving a large banquet, a party. He invited many people to that party, that banquet. At the time of the banquet, he sent out his servant to tell those who were invited, come on, everything's ready. Watch this. So the servant goes out, everybody's invited. So, all right, everybody, the banquet's ready. Come on, come on. You got to remember, no social media back then, no telephone back then, no real postal service back then. The only way to know is to send a guy around in the community and say, okay, it's ready, it's ready. It's nighttime, it's ready to go. And so when the guy goes out and says, the party's ready, the banquet's ready, my master's ready for you, it says, without exception, they all began to make excuses. Without exception. That means no one came. No one that was invited came. And the reason they didn't came, the real reason, we don't really know, but we can tell they don't want to come. They don't want to be there. So what do? They start making excuses. And we're going to look at those excuses in a minute. But before we do, let's talk about excuses for a minute. Hope you'll write this down. Let this sink in your heart. An excuse is a lie disguised as a reason. When you and I make an excuse, it's really a lie. You're like, no, it's not. It's true. Well, it may be true, but the way you're using the truth is deceiving. It may be convenient. And it's disguised as a reason. So why do we make excuses? There's a lot of reasons. Here's 3 quick ones to think about. We tend to make excuses to clear our conscience. In other words, we don't want to feel bad. So we won't do the thing that maybe we're supposed to do, God wants us to do. And we kind of feel guilty about it, and so we'll excuse that guilt away because we don't want to feel bad. We also make excuses to keep appearances. Okay? We'll make an excuse for why we didn't do it because we don't want to look bad. We don't want people to look at us and go, hey, why did he do that? Why didn't he not do that? We want everything to look good, and we're all about appearances in this day and age with social media and everything else. And we also use excuses to justify disobedience so that we won't be bad. You know, well, there's no way that I could do this because blank. Y'all, James 4:17 is one of the most convicting verses in the Bible for me. James, the half-brother of Jesus, says, remember, y'all, it is a sin to know what you ought to do and not do it. Y'all, there's 2 kinds of sin. There's sins I commit and sins I omit. James is talking about the omission. I know God wants me to do this, and I'm just not going to do it. And I got all kinds of reasons for it. I've got all kinds of excuses that justify me saying no to what God is requiring of me and asking of me. Because maybe what He's asking of me is just too much. We just sang Ocean, Spirits Lead Us, where our trust is without borders, where my feet can't touch the bottom of the ocean. We sing that song, and yet the minute God says to move this far out of our comfort zone, we say heck to the no. That's somebody else's job. That's the missionary's job. That's somebody else's job. When God's like, no, that's your job. I'm giving it to you. And you're saying, mm-mm. In the end, an excuse is just a lie. A few years ago, I was at the office at the main building, and a woman came in and she was looking for some financial help. And that happens a lot where people come in and say, hey, we need some money for food. We need this, we need that. And we do a lot through our food pantry. Back then, we didn't have much of a food pantry. This was years and years ago. And sometimes, the secretary will say, hey, who's the minister here? Well, I happen to be the only minister there at the moment. So I win. I get to talk to him. And this woman comes in and she's crying and she's sobbing. And y'all, some of these folks, they're totally legitimate. They're just having a bad time, but some of them are not. And I learned a long time ago, my job's not to try to figure out who's legit and who's not. I'll let God handle it. I just need to be a good steward of what God's given us. And so I just don't throw money at things. I'm very careful. But this woman comes in, she's crying, talking about they don't have any money. And my husband got laid off. My boyfriend, my husband, got laid off. And we don't have money for this and money for that. And we just need a little help. She never said anything about food. She just said, hey, I need this for the electric bill. I need some money for this and money for that. And I said, well, I'm really sorry to hear that. And before I could say anything, she stopped. She was like, she stopped. And I was like, is she having a seizure? What's going on? And she points, and I'm looking back. And at the time, I had a poster in my office of the Christian band, kind of a mainstream band back in the day called Skillet. Anybody ever heard of Skillet? They're cool. You should listen. All right. Anyway, I had it. They were at our church years ago, and I actually had it autographed by the band. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, it's Skillet!" And I said, "Yeah, it's Skillet." She goes, "Oh, hang on." She reaches in her pocket. Remember, she's just been crying. She pulls out a phone, better than the one I got. Hey, honey, you got to get in here right now. He's got a Skillet poster. It's autographed. Hangs the phone up. Within 30 seconds, this guy comes in. He'd been waiting in the car, the boyfriend. He comes in and goes, dude, Skillet, it's my favorite band. Yo, what's up? He opens his wallet up, and he has tons of cash. And I was like, y'all can leave. I literally said, y'all don't need any help. Actually, you want to help me out? I got 3 kids. I just nicely said, hey guys, we're not going to be able to do anything. Now, why am I telling you this story? Because the woman was making excuses. You say, well, she was lying. Yeah. But she was making excuses. And in her mind, she was justified in coming in there and asking for something when she didn't really, she just wanted it. She didn't need it. Guys, there's a difference between having an excuse and making an excuse. That's not in your notes. That's a freebie. Listen, I get it. Sometimes there's a legitimate reason we can't. That is so true. Don't feel like you can't say that to God. Don't feel like God doesn't know about it. He cares about it. But y'all, there's a difference between I have an excuse and there's a difference between I'm making this up on the fly so I won't do what you tell me to do. Do y'all see the difference? And I've had both. I've been the guy making the excuse. See, this couple didn't really have an excuse. They made an excuse in order to get something. And we make excuses to justify our actions or our inaction. And none of the excuses really hold up. In fact, the 3 excuses we're going to look at real quick that Jesus is telling the story, they don't hold up. They seem really legit at the beginning, but when you start thinking about it and investigating it, that doesn't make sense. So remember the parable. Master's having a banquet. Time for the banquet. He sends his servant out. Hey there, everybody, the banquet's ready. Come on. And it says they all began to make excuses. So here's 3 common excuses people tend to give for not following Jesus. You can kind of put these into categories, okay? And there's a bunch of different excuses, but these are 3 big ones. Okay, the first common excuse we give for not following Jesus or obeying God's word is we excuse ourselves with our possessions. We say, I can't because I have this. What is this? I don't know. You tell me. I can't because I've got this house thing, this car thing, this whatever thing. I don't know. The thing. You know what the thing is. I know what the thing is for me. But we've got this possession thing. Look at what the guy says, the first excuse in Luke 14:18. This guy says to the servant, hey, I can't come. I've bought a field and I got to go out and see it. Please excuse me. Can't go, sorry. Yeah, it's this party, yeah. Man, I would love to come, but I got this field. That sounds legitimate. I mean, if you've got land and there's issues, you know, you want to go see it. But here, let's just look at this for a second. Why in the world would you ever buy a field you never looked at? Can you do that? Yeah. Is it smart? No. And if you do own it already, why can't you look at it another time? It's not like the land's going anywhere. And here's another one. When do banquets usually happen? You can have them all day, but in Middle Eastern culture, take a guess. At nighttime. They had no electricity back then. There was no flashlight. There was no generator you could pull, and I can kind of see part of the field. Y'all, it was dark. Well, the moon was out that night. Really? You're going to inspect ground with the moon out tonight? Really? Y'all, it doesn't hold up. It's just an excuse. He was making an excuse to go look at something. Guys, this guy represents people who don't follow Jesus because of their possessions. And listen, possessions aren't wrong. It's okay to have things. Here's where it goes wrong. It's okay to have things. It is not okay for things to have you. It's okay to have possessions, but when they begin to possess you and they begin to call the shots, the Bible has a word for that, and it's called idolatry. Okay? So don't hear me hating on people that have money and have things. There's nothing, money is not the root of all evil. The love of money is. The Bible says that. So let me ask you guys a question. Think about this, and you answer it between you and God. Is there something in your life right now that possesses you more than Jesus? Is there something in your life that's capturing your attention more than Him? And you're like, how do I know that? You're making, the way you know it is you and I make decisions to not follow Jesus or obey Christ based on those possessions, okay? So the first common excuse is possessions. Here's a second common excuse in this parable. We often excuse ourselves with our occupations, okay? Now, occupations is more than a job. Occupations is anything, any event, activity that occupies your week, okay? Occupies your day. Not just a job, but other things too. And look at verse 19, Luke 14. Another guy says, I can't come. Why? Well, I've bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm going to try them out. I ask you to excuse me. Okay, let me explain this real fast. 5 yoke of oxen. A yoke of oxen was 2. Strapped together. When Jesus says, hey, come follow me, I'll carry your burdens. My yoke is easy, your burden is light. He's referring to the yoke, which is like a wooden thing, and 2 animals would get in it, and they would be paired up. So 5 yoke of oxen is how many oxen? Anybody math people know? 10. Yep, it's on the ACT. All right. So 10. Now let me try to break this down. Okay. When I was growing up on the farm, we rarely worked past sundown back in the day. Tractors had lights, and we would do what we could do. But we did only what we could do. And there would be times the rain's coming and my dad's like, we got to plow as long as we can plow and do as much as we can do. Well, today, if you didn't know, my dad's been retired over 12 years. We never had anything like this. Tractors today, they have the lights, but they also have GPS that literally will drive itself. Like you're in there, you have to take over, but it'll literally go. It knows where to go. So I know farmers that tell me now, we go all night long. If the rain's coming and we're getting in a pinch and we got to get this thing planted, we got to get this thing plowed, we're picking cotton, we got to harvest the cotton or use the combine. Y'all, GPS will take over and it just sort of runs it so you can go out at night and do things and farm at night, right? Y'all following me? Did they have GPS back then? So let me show you the equivalent of a tractor. Yokes of oxen. That's what the equivalent of a tractor in Jesus' day was. They don't have GPS. They don't have lights. It's a dumb excuse. You can't go out and plow a field at night and do anything about it. It's just I'm occupied. I got something to do. Y'all, this deal had already been made. What good is it going to do to try out the oxen now? He's already made the deal. It just doesn't hold up. It's very unreasonable. So, guys, this guy represents People who are so absorbed with their occupations that they miss opportunities with God. Think about your favorite celebrity, your favorite athlete. Imagine they came to you and said, hey, I want you to come with me. We're going to do whatever. We're going to throw the football if it's a football player. We're going to record a song if it's Taylor Swift, probably about a breakup. We're going to do all kinds of things, right? We're going to, and you would be like, I'm sorry. I've got to go out and work the garden. Would you ever do that? Heck no. But we do that to God, who made the universe. Think about it. So what's your occupation? Any activity that occupies your schedule. You talk about, you and God deal with your occupation. I will deal with mine. We all got it, okay? Jobs and extra things that we do. Is there something in your life right now that occupies your schedule more than Jesus? What I mean by that is this. It calls the shots, not Him. You center your life around that occupation rather than Him. Think about it. Here's a third excuse very quickly. We often excuse ourselves with our relationships. We excuse ourselves with relationships. Look at verse 20. Another guy invited to the banquet says, I can't come. Why? I just got married and therefore I'm unable to come. Now, y'all, this to me on one hand seems so legitimate. Like, dude, the guy just got married. I mean, he just got married, We're not going to expect him to come to a party. He just got married, y'all. He had his own party. Y'all, we read this wrong. We read this as if they just had a ceremony. He's a newlywed. Why wouldn't the guy just bring his wife to the party? Y'all, Valentine's Day's coming up. Okay? I'm taking Christy to main event Sunday night for Valentine's Day. I mean, that's what's happening. Hello, it's a banquet. I'm teasing. I'm doing more than that. But seriously, I'm joking with her. I was like, Happy Valentine's Day, Y'all, this guy had it made at like a party. Hey, babe, only the best for you. We're going up on the house and we're going to party and we're going to eat and it's going to be great. No, I can't. I'm married. Y'all, why not bring the wife? I mean, that just makes no sense. Guys, this guy's already married. He's just making up an excuse. Listen, I want to say something that I never thought of until I prepared this message this week. It's something God told me, and I'm just passing it on to you because He's talking to me about it. Okay? It's not in your notes, but you might want to write this down. This is so big. This is bigger than this message, okay? God should inform your relationships. Your relationship should not inform God. And you're like, what does that mean? We let our relationships call the shots all the time. You want to know why? Because they're right in front of us. We can hear them, feel them, touch them, hug them, see them. We can't feel, hear, touch, and see God. But y'all, the best thing you can do is to let God be the number one thing in your life and the number one relationship. He's not a thing, He's a person. And you let that relationship be first, and I promise you, if He is first and that relationship's first, all the other relationships in your life will be what they need to be. They'll be in the right perspective, the right priority. And if you're like, man, but I like this person and they don't really care about God, well, I'm going to tell you, He puts me first. Okay, great, but you're not God. And so He's expecting things from you that only God can give. You want to talk about pressure? You want to talk about a song you can write? That's it. So God should inform your relationships, not your relationships informing God. Okay? Jesus said something crazy at the end of this parable. And I'm just going to talk about it for a second, and you can talk about it more in your groups. It's a disturbing passage because people misunderstand it. In Luke 14, all the way down in verse 25, right after this story about excuses and people not following Jesus, Jesus tells His disciple, well, it says a large crowd was following Jesus. Like a bunch of people were eating their popcorn trying to see what He's about to do. And Jesus turns around and says to them, hey guys, glad you're following me. But if you want to be my disciple, it's a difference. You must by comparison, say that word with me, hate everybody else. And then He gets specific. If you want to follow me and be my disciple, you got to hate everybody else. Your father, your mother, your wife, your children, Some of you are like, I can do this, my brother and my sister. You got to hate them. And then he says, yes, even your own life. You got to hate your own life if you're going to follow me. What? I thought Jesus loved everybody. He does. So he's telling me, he's commanding me to hate? What does he mean? Does he literally mean I got to hate people? No. Here's what he means. Y'all, Jesus loves hyperbole. Y'all know what hyperbole is? It's an exaggeration to make a point. He loves... So when I make a hyperbole, I get called a drama king or whatever they call it. Oh, you're so dramatic. Really? It's called hyperbole and Jesus loved it. Get off my back, okay? But he loved it. He would say this crazy thing to get your attention, to exaggerate a point, to get you to get it. So when he said, hey, guys, are you going to be a crowd or are you going to be my follower? If you want to be my follower, you got to hate everybody else and love me. What does he mean by that? What does he mean by hate? Here's what he means. Our love for Jesus should be so big, it should be so clear that our love for other people in our life will seem like hate in comparison. I'm going to say it again. Our love for Jesus should be so big that our love for other people would seem like hate compared to what we do with Jesus. He's not saying hate your parents. He's not saying hate your friends. He's not saying don't love other people. Of course he's saying love people. He's the one that said love your neighbor as yourself. Hello. What he's saying is don't allow the love of other people to be the number one thing in your life, to be in the driver's seat. That's what he's saying. If that's in the driver's seat, you won't have time for me. You won't listen to me. You'll listen to me to a point. You won't go any further. That's what he's trying to say. And listen, if you trust him with your relationships, you make him number one, I promise you, you will have amazing relationships with other people. So here's the question. Is there a relationship in your life that is more important than Jesus? It's a great question. I mean, I'm asking me too, okay? Y'all, each of these three guys, they were unwilling to partake of the feast. They had no desire to accept the invitation, okay? They were caught up in the world. Hey guys, listen up, listen up. They were caught up in the world, and so they could never follow Jesus. Y'all, the devil knows this, and he's trying to do that with us. He's trying to get us so distracted, so hungry for things that aren't Christ, that even to think about following Jesus seems so weird, and I don't even have an appetite for it. I remember a time in my life as a young believer, I didn't have an appetite for the Bible, and I didn't have an appetite for Jesus either. And I was sincere to God about it. I said, God, I know I'm supposed to read the Bible. I don't want to. Hey, God, I know I'm supposed to share my faith. I don't know that I really want to. Hey, God, I know I'm supposed to give money. I don't know that I really want to. And I started asking God, hey, God, I believe you're real. I know you saved me. That's not the question for me. The question for me is, am I going to do what you tell me to do? Am I going to be obedient? And I asked God to change my heart. And y'all, he's been doing that ever since I prayed that prayer. He's still doing it. And he can do it to you. But you got to be willing to be real with him and stop being fake with him and just say, God, I'm not where I need to be. I'm struggling with this. Would you help me to love you and love other people the way you want me to do it? Or we can be just caught up in the world. So what's the fallout of the excuses? Because sometimes we think if I just make an excuse, God will forgive me, he'll understand, and there's no fallout. Y'all, there is fallout every time we say no to God. You know that? There's always fallout. Here's the fallout in the story Jesus said. It's on your sheet, not on the screen. So it's Luke verse 21. So the servant comes back, reported that everybody's making excuses to the master. Then in anger, y'all, who's the master in this story? It's God. Then in anger, the master of the house told his servant, go out quickly into the streets and the alleys, get the poor, the maimed, the blind, the lame. And the servant says, Master, what you've ordered has already been done and there's still room. Then the master told the servant, well, go out into the highways and hedges and make them come in so that my house may be filled. For I tell you, none of those people that were first invited will ever enjoy my banquet. In other words, the guys that said no, the guys that rejected, the guys that made excuses, they missed it. I don't care if they want to come now. They're not coming. They're uninvited. I invited them in good faith, and they turned me down left and right in good faith. I mean, that is a sobering, because we think, oh, God will give me all the time in the world to get saved. No, He won't. There's no guarantee. Well, I'll do it in 2 years. There's no guarantee you'll be here in 2 years. No guarantee, even if you are here, that God will be calling you in 2 years. I mean, I don't know. But I'm telling you, God's offer does not have, it has an expiration date. I don't know what it is for you or for me, but there are opportunities that, just like waves in the ocean, that will pass you by. Whenever I've tried to boogie board, it's more like drowning for me. But when I watch the wave coming, and you have to anticipate the wave. And here's what will happen. If I don't care, the wave will hit me in the head and drown me for a second, and it'll pass me by. The whole wave is gone. I can't get that one again. Well, maybe there'll be another one. And sometimes there is, and sometimes it's pretty awful, you know. But then maybe there's another one, and I have to time it just right. Y'all listen, we don't know if there's going to be another wave. Whatever God's asking you to do. So here's the fallout. They missed it. I'm going to close things down real quick. What was the reason Jesus told this story? The story was about a banquet. People got invited. They made excuses. At the very beginning, in verse 15, that set this whole thing up, Jesus is eating with a bunch of religious people at a what? Kind of a banquet. And one of those people with Jesus reclined at the table. You got to understand, they ate on the floor, and the table was not like a table where we're sitting in, there's chairs. So reclining was like a normal thing, okay? So this guy's reclining at the table. They're enjoying themselves. And he said to Jesus, "Hey, Jesus, blessed is the one who will eat bread in the kingdom of God." In other words, blessed is the one who will eat at the banquet in heaven. Y'all know there's a great banquet in heaven. Jesus even talks about it. And Jesus says, "Oh, you want to talk about a banquet?" A man was given a large banquet, and he invited a bunch of people. And those people kept making excuses. I bet the guy stopped reclining after that. Because he's looking at a guy going, you make excuses. Listen. Some of us need to stop making excuses. You know you need to get saved. You care about what everybody else thinks. You're scared about what you're going to have to give up. You're scared of what it's going to mean in your relationship with somebody else. You can either keep making excuses or you can follow them. You know what? There's a saying. It's not in the Bible, but it's a true statement that the road to hell is paved with excuses. I was on that road once. I made a ton of them. Thank God he got a hold of me, and thank God I finally stopped making excuses. For some of you, man, you got saved a long time ago, and that's been it. You prayed a prayer, and that's been it. You've been baptized. Baptism doesn't save you, but baptism is super important. It's a step of obedience. For some of you, it might be that you need to go to somebody who hurt you and you need to forgive them, or you just need to forgive them in general. For some of you, you made a mistake and you know it and you need to go apologize for it. But you keep making excuses. I mean, there's that wave. How many more waves are you going to get? How many more opportunities are you going to get? There's all kinds of things we're making excuses about. You know what they are. God has told you what they are. I don't know what they are, but God has. He's told me too, okay? So what's my excuse? Just bow your heads, guys. We're going to have a time of response. Your response is not to this message. It should not be to me. It should not be because somebody else came forward necessarily. It should be to the Lord, okay? Now look, y'all are already putting up your heart. Don't put your heart up. You can put the pen up later. You can put the handout up later. I want you to listen to me, okay? Don't let this pass by. If God has been telling you to do something, what is stopping you from doing it? What excuse are you holding on to that's keeping you from taking that step of obedience? I'm going to pray. We're going to sing a song for just a minute.